Rain slid down the tall glass windows of the Aurum restaurant, turning the city lights outside into long golden streaks. Inside, everything was warm, polished, slow. Cutlery chimed softly. A piano played something elegant and distant. People spoke in low voices, the kind of voices used by people who were used to being served. At a corner table by the window sat a man and a boy. The man was Ethan Blackwood, late 30s. Sharp suit, dark blue, expensive, pressed. The look of someone who never showed up unprepared. Across from him sat his son Leo, 7 years old. Brown hair that fell over his forehead, eyes too bright for a place this formal. On the table lay a perfect dinner. Steak, mashed potatoes with truffle oil, steamed greens, bread in a basket, a small glass of juice for the boy. On the table lay something else too, Ethan's phone. Screen lighting up again, vibrating, waiting. Leo held his fork the way kids do when they're trying to act grown-up. He tried to cut his piece of steak the way he had seen his dad cut it, but the meat was a little tough. His hand was a little small, and his father was looking down. "Dad," Leo whispered. I dropped my knife. Ethan heard it. Of course he heard it. He always heard everything. He just didn't always react. He lifted his eyes, smiled a tired smile, the smile of a man who thinks this dinner is already a win because he made it here. "It's okay, buddy. You eat. I'll just take this call." He picked up the phone, slid his chair back, stood up. His chair didn't even scrape the floor, he was that controlled. He touched Leo's shoulder, just for a second. Then he walked toward the glass doors, toward the rain, toward the glow of the entrance where he could talk business without the piano in the way. The moment the door closed behind him, the world changed for the boy. The music was still there, the lights were still warm. But his dad was gone from the frame, and that was the only part that mattered. Leo looked at the steak again. He wanted to eat it by himself. He wanted to show he could do it. Dad was busy. It was okay. He could eat like a big boy. He picked up the fork. He stabbed a bigger piece than before. He brought it to his mouth. The meat was too big. He chewed again. It didn't get smaller fast enough. He tried to swallow. The food didn't go down. It got stuck. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the body reacted before the mind understood. Leo grabbed his throat. His eyes widened. Air didn't come in. He tried to cough, no sound. Just a dry, panicked spasm. His feet kicked the chair leg. The fork clattered onto the plate. A woman at the next table turned her head. Then everything in the room slowed down. At the far end of the restaurant, near the service station, a young waitress was wiping down a table. Her name was Lila. Black uniform, red apron tied tight, hair pulled back. Movements neat, presence quiet. She was the kind of server who didn't spill, didn't forget, didn't chat too long. She stayed in the background, but the background would fall apart without her. That kind. She wasn't watching the boy, she was just doing her job. But there are instincts you don't lose once you've had them. A choked sound, a small chair movement, a hand to the throat. She turned. She saw a boy alone at a table, face going pale, mouth open, no air, hands clawing at nothing. Lila dropped the towel. She was already moving. "Hey," someone said. "Call 911, someone else shouted. But they were slow. They were civilians. She was not. She cut straight through the path between the tables, sidestepping a chair, curving around a couple, ignoring the manager calling after her. She reached the boy in seconds. Leo's eyes were wet now. He was trying, but no air came. His small chest was beginning to heave uselessly. "It's okay. I've got you," Lila said. Her voice was low, steady, meant more for him than for anyone else. She pulled the chair back, shifted behind him, wrapped one arm around his chest, fisted her other hand and placed it just above his navel, below the ribcage. She didn't even think the word for it. She just did it. One inward, upward thrust. Nothing. Second thrust. The boy gagged. Third thrust. The piece of steak shot out wet, ugly, heavy, and landed on the tablecloth. Air rushed back into the boy's body. He coughed, coughed again. Then he cried, that sound, that roar, relieved, frightened sound, went straight through her, because she knew another sound. The sound when air doesn't come back. She had heard that one before. She had heard it on a night she didn't like to remember, in a white corridor, with monitors, and people too late. This sound was different. This sound was life returning. People started breathing again. Oh my God. Is he okay? Someone get water. A couple of diners clapped, the shaky kind of clapping people do when they don't know what else to do. The manager arrived, face pale, tie a little crooked now. Lila, he's fine, she said. He's breathing. She was still kneeling. Her hands were still on the boy's shoulders. She hadn't let go yet. Leo turned, tears on his cheeks, eyes still wide from the fear. You helped me, he sobbed. His voice cracked in the middle. Lila looked at him. She smiled, small, soft, almost apologetic. Yeah, you're okay. She brushed his hair back from his forehead, the way mothers do without thinking. Then she stood up, and she was going to step away, to disappear back into the role of just a waitress when the glass door flew open. Ethan, rain on his shoulders, phone still in his hand, breath half there. What happened? Leo! Leo! He rushed to the table, dropped to his knees, pulled the boy into his arms. Leo flung his arms around his father's neck and sobbed into his suit. I choked. I couldn't. Dad, It's okay. It's okay, I'm here. I've got you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Ethan held him as if someone had tried to pull the boy away and he had just won him back. Then, only then, he looked up. His eyes met Lila's. For a moment, he didn't speak, because in her face, he saw two things at once. The focus of someone who knows exactly what to do, and the hurt of someone who wishes she didn't have to do it again. You saved my son, he said, voice low, raw. It's okay, Lila replied. I just did what I had to. She didn't wait for thanks. Didn't make a scene. Didn't tell him what technique she used. Didn't tell him she used to know more than this. She just straightened her apron, gave the manager a look that meant it's handled, and stepped back toward the service area. She wanted to go back to being no one. Paramedics came because someone had called anyway. They checked Leo's breathing, his pulse, his throat. One of them said to Ethan, he's lucky. 10 seconds more and this would have been a different night. 10 seconds. That number hit Ethan like a punch. 10 seconds, the length of a polite business call. 10 seconds, the time he spent saying, yes, I got the figures. I'll look at it tomorrow. 10 seconds, the time he chose not to be at the table. He looked around for the waitress. She was gone. Where is she? The girl who helped him. The manager rubbed his hands, nervous. She didn't feel well. She asked to leave early. She left? Yes, sir. Ethan looked down at his son, who was now sipping water, cheeks still wet, small hands still trembling. Then he looked toward the door, where rain still curtained the street. Someone had saved his boy and walked right out into the night. Outside, under the drizzle, Lila walked fast. Her apron was folded over her arm. Her hair was damp. The cold air hit her lungs in a way that made everything sharper. She should have stayed. Let them thank her. Let them make a fuss. But that was exactly what she didn't want. She didn't want eyes on her. She didn't want questions. She didn't want anyone to ask, how did you know what to do? Because the real answer was, I knew what to do because once I didn't. And someone died. She turned into a narrow street where the restaurant lights couldn't reach. Rain tapped on the awnings. Cars hissed past. Her heart was still beating too fast. She stopped under a small roof and looked at her hands. They were still shaking, not from fear of what had happened, From memory of what could have happened, she raised her left wrist. There, across the inside of it, was a thin, pale scar. Old, but not old enough to forget. A line of guilt made visible. "Not this time," she whispered. "Not this time." She closed her fist, breathed out slowly, let the rain cool her down. Her apartment was small, third floor, hallway light flickering. She unlocked the door, pushed it open with her shoulder, threw the apron on the back of a chair. The room smelled faintly of coffee and old books. On the desk by the window lay a photo frame turned face down. She knew what was in it. She didn't need to look, but tonight, because of the boy, she picked it up. In the photo, she was younger, hair shorter, eyes brighter, wearing a white lab coat. Surrounded by other students in white lab coats, all of them smiling like the future was obvious. Behind the photo, half squeezed under it, was a folded document, University of Medicine. Program, Doctor of Medicine. Status, withdrawn. Her throat tightened. Saving the boy had felt like opening a door she had nailed shut. She sat on the edge of the bed, listened to the rain. Let her shoulders drop. Let the adrenaline drain out of her. Today, she had done it right. Today, her hands had not failed, but the fear was still there, deep, stubborn. What if next time it's harder? What if next time she freezes? What if next time the ending is like that night in the hospital, cold and flat and full of people saying, "We lost him"? She lay back and stared at the ceiling. Outside, cars went by. The city went on. No one knew a child had almost died. Across town, high above the wet streets, Ethan sat on the edge of his son's bed. Leo was asleep now, exhausted by the crying, by the scare, by the way the body shakes after it comes back from almost gone. His small hand was still curled around Ethan's finger. Ethan looked at him the way a drowning man looks at the shore. He had almost lost him, because of a phone call, because he assumed nothing bad happens in 10 seconds. He leaned forward, kissed his son's hair, and whispered, "I'm sorry, buddy." He straightened, walked into the living room, and played the restaurant security footage on his tablet. The manager had sent it to him right after. He watched the scene again. The boy, choking. The room panicking. The waitress running. Precise movement, controlled strength. 1, 2, 3, and the boy lived. He watched her face. Not the uniform, not the apron. Her face. There was pain there. There was relief, too. Not the shallow relief of, "I did my job." The deeper one, "This time I didn't fail." Who was she? He paused the video on her, a girl with tired eyes. Not someone trying to impress him, not someone chasing a tip, someone carrying something she didn't talk about. He looked out at the rain. He had money. He had influence. He had people who could find anyone. But tonight it wasn't about repaying a debt. It was about something else. About the way she told him, "I just did what I had to." About the way she left before he could say thank you. About the way his son clung to him, whispering, "Dad, I couldn't breathe." That sentence would not leave him. He knew, as clearly as he knew tomorrow's meetings, that he would go back to that restaurant. He would ask for her. And if she switched shifts, he would ask again. And if she refused to see him, he would find out why. Because the night his son almost died was also the night he realized he wasn't just a busy man. He was a man who had let his child sit alone at a table and choke. That was something he could not forgive himself for. That was the night fate linked 3 lives together. The man who almost lost, the boy who almost didn't grow up, and the waitress who had once failed to save and this time didn't. Morning crept through the thin curtains of Lila's small apartment. The rain had stopped sometime before dawn, leaving the air washed clean. Drops clung to the window glass like forgotten tears. Inside, the world was quiet except for the hum of the tone, refrigerator, and the distant echo of traffic waking up. Lila sat on the edge of the bed, holding a mug between her palms. The coffee had gone cold. She wasn't really drinking it anyway. She was replaying last night, the boy's face, the sound of him choking, the moment the food shot free, the way his father looked at her, that sharp, startled gratitude. Every frame of it flickered behind her eyes, like a film that wouldn't stop looping. Each time it ended, she breathed a little harder. She had saved a life. She should have felt proud. She didn't. There were reasons she had chosen this job, this uniform, this quiet corner of the world. Reasons that had nothing to do with ambition and everything to do with disappearing. Waitressing let her move without being seen. People looked through her, not at her. It was safe, predictable, unremarkable. But last night had ripped that safety open. Now people would talk. The manager, the guests, maybe even the press. And Ethan, Blackwood the father, men like him didn't forget favors. They found names, they sent gifts, they asked questions. Lila couldn't afford questions. She looked down at her wrist. The faint scar caught the pale morning light. It was her reminder, her sentence, her warning. Stay unseen. She put down the mug, stood, and tied her hair back. Time to pretend nothing happened. At the restaurant that afternoon, the air smelled of detergent and lemon polish. Staff moved in soft rhythm, resetting tables for the lunch rush. When Lila walked in, heads turned. Someone whispered, "That's her." Someone else clapped lightly. She smiled a polite, almost forced smile. "Lila," the manager called from the counter. "You all right? You did something big last night." "I'm fine," she said. "Just doing my job." He nodded, awkward, not sure if he should say more. "You saved a child's life. You should take the day off." "I need the shift," her tone closed the conversation. He didn't insist, but all day, eyes followed her. A nod here, a thank you there. Every glance felt like a spotlight. By evening, she was exhausted, not from work, but from being seen. Across town, Ethan sat behind his desk on the 47th floor. The skyline stretched before him, a maze of glass and ambition. He had spent the morning pretending to work, signing papers without reading them. His assistant spoke numbers. He nodded. None of it stuck. In his mind, he kept seeing the same thing. A waitress in black and red, saving his son while he stood outside with a phone to his ear. At noon, he closed his laptop. "Cancel the rest of my meetings," he told his assistant. "Sir, you have a board. Cancel them." He picked up his coat and left. Back at the restaurant, Lila was polishing glasses behind the bar when the door opened and a tall figure stepped in. She looked up, just once long enough to recognize him, and her breath caught. Ethan Blackwood. He looked different in daylight, less immaculate, more human. There was a faint tremor in his composure, as if the night had left something inside him unsettled. He scanned the room until he saw her. Their eyes met. He started walking toward her. She straightened, set the glass down, forced calm into her face. "Miss Lila?" he said. His voice was deep, careful, the kind used with fragile things. She nodded slightly. "Can I help you, sir?" "You already did." He smiled, but it was a tired smile. "I never got to thank you properly." "There's no need." "I think there is." He reached into his pocket, pulled out an envelope, a check, she assumed. She raised a hand before he could hand it to her. "Please don't." He stopped. Surprise flickered across his face. "It's just, I don't take money for that. It's not payment, it's gratitude." "Then say thank you," she said quietly. He did. Simple, sincere. "Thank you." The words hung between them, heavier than he expected. He wanted to ask about her, how she knew what to do, where she had learned it. But something in her eyes told him not to push. She broke the silence first. "How's your son?" "He's fine. Back to school today. Keeps telling everyone a superhero saved him." Lila's lips curved, just a little. "He exaggerates." "Kids do," Ethan said. "But he's not wrong." Her eyes flicked away. "He'll forget soon enough." "I won't." That line lingered longer than either of them wanted. After he left, she stood still for a long time. The conversation had been short, polite, harmless, yet it stirred everything she had tried to bury. People remembered. People came back. People asked. By the time her shift ended, she felt like she'd lived 2 days in one. She clocked out, untied the red apron, and stepped into the night air. The city glowed wet and gold. She walked home slowly, shoulders tight. At an intersection, she paused. Across the street, a reflection in a shop window caught her eye herself. In uniform, face pale under the lights. She barely recognized the woman staring back. She whispered under her breath, "You promised to stay invisible." That night, she couldn't sleep. The ceiling cracked faintly with the sound of pipes. Somewhere, a dog barked. She turned on her side, then on her back. Finally, she reached for her old laptop on the floor. The screen glowed dimly. A login prompt appeared, her university account, still active. She hesitated, then typed her password. Her inbox filled the screen messages from years ago, frozen in time. Among them, Incident Report, Ward 7, Night Shift. Her stomach clenched. She clicked it. The report was brief, clinical, heartless. Patient, collapsed post-surgery. Resuscitation attempted, failure recorded. Attending student, Lila M. She closed the laptop, pressing the lid shut, until it clicked. The silence that followed was loud. The next day, Ethan returned again. This time he brought Leo. The boy ran inside, eyes wide, scanning every face until he saw her. He ran up to the bar. "Hi, you're the lady who saved me." The other servers looked over and smiled. Lila crouched down to the boy's height. "Hey, champ, you doing okay?" He nodded enthusiastically. "Dad says I'm indestructible now." She laughed softly. "Let's not test that, okay?" Leo grinned, showing a missing tooth. Then, with the innocent directness of children, he said, "You didn't tell me your name." "Lila." "Lila," he repeated, tasting it like a secret. "I like it." Ethan watched them, something easing in his face. He hadn't seen his son smile like that in weeks. He cleared his throat. "We wanted to stop by and thank you together. And maybe buy you dinner if that's not weird." She shook her head gently. "You don't have to. It's just dinner," he said. "No strings, my son insists." Leo nodded. "Please." Lila hesitated. Every instinct screamed to say no. But the boy's face, open, bright, unguarded, weakened her defenses. "Okay," she said softly. "Dinner." They walked later that evening along the riverside. Streetlights reflected on the water like broken coins. Ethan carried 2 cups of coffee. Leo ran ahead, chasing his reflection. For a while, they didn't speak. The quiet between them was comfortable, almost strange in its peace. Ethan broke it first. "I keep thinking about last night, how fast it happened, how fast everything can change." She didn't answer. He glanced at her. "You knew exactly what to do." "I used to study medicine," she said simply. He looked surprised. "You left?" "I had to." "Why?" She kept her eyes on the river. "Because once I didn't know what to do. And someone died." The words hung there, cold and clean. He didn't say, "I'm sorry." He just nodded, letting the confession settle. They walked a little further. Leo shouted something about ducks. Lila smiled faintly. Ethan watched her, the way she relaxed when the boy laughed, the way her shoulders lowered, like some invisible weight loosened. He realized she wasn't just avoiding the world, she was punishing herself. When they parted ways, Ethan said, "You gave him more than air last night. You gave him laughter." She almost smiled. "Maybe he gave me something too." He wanted to ask what, but she was already walking away. Her figure dissolved into the crowd, the red of her apron fading into the city's gold light. Later that night, Ethan stood at his window, watching the river far below. He thought about her words. Because once, I didn't know what to do. He understood that kind of guilt. Different details, same poison. The things you wish you could redo. The things you carry when the world stops for 10 seconds and never restarts the same way again. He turned off his phone. For the first time in years, he left it face down, screen dark. In her apartment, Lila sat by the window, a small smile forming as she remembered Leo's laugh echoing over the river. For a moment, it felt like breathing again, not survival, but life. She whispered to the night, "Maybe it's okay to be seen. Just a little." The city outside glimmered like 1,000 open eyes, watching without judgment. Somewhere in that quiet, a second chance was beginning. The rain didn't come back the next day, but the feeling of that night stayed with Ethan like a damp shirt that wouldn't dry. The city glowed clean under a pale sky. Cars flowed like silver fish through the streets. People hurried to work, to meetings, to lives that hadn't almost ended in a restaurant. But for Ethan, everything was divided now. Before the choke, after the choke. He sat in his office, glass walls on 3 sides, the skyline, stretched out like something he owned. People came in, gave reports, asked for signatures. He nodded, he signed, he gave decisions. But in the middle of a sentence about quarterly forecasts, he saw again not numbers, not graphs, but his son's small hands clawing at his throat. "Sir? Sir?" His CFO was looking at him. Ethan blinked, refocused. "Yeah, approved. Go ahead." The CFO left, satisfied. Ethan leaned back in his chair and let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He wasn't tired from work. He was tired from thinking about what didn't happen. That night, back at home, he stood in Leo's doorway. The boy was on the floor building a tower of blocks. Cartoon playing low in the background. No sign, none at all, that 2 nights ago air had stopped in that small throat. "Hey, champ," Ethan said. "Hi, Dad," Leo said without looking up. "I made it taller than yesterday." "Yeah? That's impressive." "It's gonna fall, though," Leo said cheerfully. "But I can build it again." Ethan smiled, but something in the boy's words lodged in him. "It's gonna fall, but I can build it again." He wished life worked like that. He stepped in, sat on the edge of the bed. "How are you feeling? Any pain?" "Nope." "Nothing stuck?" "Nope." "You scared me, you know that." Leo looked up now, eyes wide. "I scared me too." They both laughed, but Ethan's laugh broke faster. He reached over and pulled his son closer, pressing him against his chest. Leo let himself be held, warm and small and solid. "You're okay," Ethan murmured. "You're okay." "Because she helped me," Leo said into his father's shirt. "Lila." "Yeah." "Because she helped you." He said it softly, with reverence. Then Leo added, "Innocent, but you weren't there." The words didn't hurt because they were cruel. They hurt because they were true. Ethan swallowed. "No," he said, "I wasn't." "Where were you?" "I was on the phone. Outside." "Why?" "Because I thought it was important." Leo pulled back to look at him, forehead wrinkling. "More important than me choking." There was no way to answer that didn't make him small. So Ethan didn't answer. He just pulled the boy in again and hoped small children forgot fast. But sometimes small children don't forget fast. That night, after putting Leo to bed, Ethan poured himself a drink and sat by the living room window. The city lights blinked. The river ran black and quiet. In the glass, he could see his own reflection, a successful man staring like he didn't recognize himself. He picked up his phone. He scrolled through his call log. The call he'd left the table for, a supplier in Singapore, a contract that could have been signed tomorrow, a question that could have been answered by his VP. He closed his eyes. He had always told himself he worked this hard for his son, to give him everything, to make sure he never lacked, but he had almost let the thing he was working for slip away because of the work. It was so stupid, so fragile, so avoidable. He put the glass down and stood up. He knew what he had to do. The next evening, he went back to the restaurant. It was earlier than usual before the dinner crowd, when the place still smelled of bleach and fresh bread. The manager's eyes widened. "Mr. Blackwood, welcome back. I'm looking for Lila. She's on the evening shift today, starts in 20 minutes. I'll wait." He chose the same table where everything had happened. He sat. He watched the room. He remembered how it looked with fear in it. When Lila walked in from the staff entrance, hair tied, apron over her arm, she saw him immediately. It was hard to miss a man like him, posture straight, suit perfect, the quiet intensity of someone who wasn't there to eat. For a second, she considered turning around, telling the manager she was sick, going home. But that would just make it stranger, so she walked over. "Back again?" she asked, tone controlled. "I said I wouldn't forget," he replied. She tilted her head. "You already said thank you. I know. This isn't about that." She frowned a little, wary. "What is it about then?" He took a breath. "It's about what you said. What did I say? That you used to study medicine, that you left." Her shoulders tensed. He held up a hand. "I'm not prying. I'm not digging. I just wanted to understand." "Why?" "Because you saved my son, and you looked hurt by it." That surprised her. Most people only saw the hero part. They never saw the after. "Sometimes saving someone reminds you of the one you didn't save," she said quietly. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that." She almost laughed. "Do you?" "I do," he said, "because I almost didn't save someone either." She looked at him, then really looked. He wasn't just a rich father coming to settle a debt. He was a man who had looked at what he valued most and seen how close he came to losing it. "What do you want from me, Mr. Blackwood?" she asked, softer now. "I want to make it right," he said. "It is right. The boy is fine." "I don't mean that right." He searched for the words. "I want to make it right with me." He gestured toward the table. "Can you sit? Just a minute." She hesitated. The manager nodded from afar. It was okay. She sat. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I've done a lot of things in my life," he said. "Built companies, closed deals, won arguments. I don't fail a lot." "That doesn't surprise me," she said with a small curve of her lips. "But yesterday," he went on, "I failed at the only thing that actually matters. I wasn't at the table. My kid almost died, and I was talking about logistics." There was no self-pity in his voice, just a man reporting the facts of his own shame. "You came back," she said. "That counts. It doesn't erase it." "No," she agreed. "It doesn't." They sat with that. This was the part most people rushed past. The part where nothing could undo what happened or almost happened, and all you could do was know it. "Do you have kids?" he asked suddenly. She shook her head. "No." "Then why did you look at him like that?" Her eyes flickered. "Like what?" "Like you were terrified he'd stop breathing." She stared at him. Then she said, very slowly, "Because I've seen a child stop breathing." She hadn't meant to tell him. She hadn't meant to open it up. But sometimes, when someone sits across from you with their guilt in their hands, it becomes easier to set yours down too. "It was in my last year," she said. "Pediatrics rotation, night shift. The attending was busy. We were short-handed. A boy came in asthma, severe. He was scared. I was supposed to monitor. I did. But I missed the early signs of him crashing. I was sure the SATs would stabilize. They didn't. By the time we intubated, his heart." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. "How long ago?" he asked. 3 years. "And you're still carrying it like it happened last night." It did happen last night, she said. Every time something like that happens, it happens again. He nodded. I was cleared, she added. It wasn't considered malpractice. It was considered an unfortunate outcome. That's a terrible phrase. I know, she said, a bitter little smile. But it doesn't matter what they called it. I called it my fault. I quit 2 weeks later. I couldn't hear monitors without shaking. I couldn't walk past pediatrics. I couldn't stand parents' eyes. So I left. I picked a job where nobody's life depended on me. She looked down at her hands. And then your boy choked. And you ran toward him, Ethan said. She looked up. Her eyes were wet now, but steady. Because I swore if I ever got another chance to do it right, I wouldn't freeze again. He exhaled, long and slow. So this was your second chance, he said. No, she corrected gently. It was his. A silence followed, but not the awkward kind. Two people who had both almost lost something were sitting in the same hard truth. You don't get to go back. You only get to go forward with the knowledge. He straightened. Okay, he said. Then let me ask you this. Why don't you go back? To medicine, she said, surprised. Yes, I told you. I froze. You didn't freeze. You acted. I saw it. On video, you were faster than anyone else in that room. That was different. How? Because I wasn't in a white coat. He frowned. She tried to explain. When I wear this, she said, plucking at her black shirt, I'm just a girl serving food. If I mess up, someone sends the plate back. If I mess up, nobody dies. But in there in the hospital, if I mess up, a mother cries. He let that sit. Then he said, very quietly, mothers still cry, even when we're not there, even when we are there. We don't get to control that. She looked at him. Your son was almost one of those kids, she said. I know, he said. And you weren't there. I know, he said again, sharper. She pulled back slightly. I didn't mean... No, he said, shaking his head. You're right. Say it. I wasn't there. That's the sentence I've been trying not to say out loud. He looked her straight in the eye. I wasn't there when my son almost died. The words came out like a confession and a punishment. He didn't cry. Men like him rarely did. But his jaw clenched and his hands, resting on the table, curled slowly. I thought answering calls made me a good provider, he said. I thought being reachable 24/7 made me a good CEO. I told myself that when he grew up, he'd understand. But kids don't need us to be understandable. They need us to be there. He let out a humorless breath. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be, he answered. Just don't disappear. She blinked. What? Don't quit again because you were seen. Her eyebrows drew together. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said. I know you saved my son. I know you moved like someone trained. I know you hate being thanked. And I know you're about to tell your manager to move you to a different branch, or to the morning shift, or somewhere customers don't recognize you. She stared at him, stunned. She began. You were going to do that, weren't you? She looked away. Yeah, she whispered. I was. Why? Because once people know your name, they start asking for your story, she said. And my story isn't pretty. He shook his head. It's brave. She huffed a little laugh. Brave was staying and finishing. I ran. Maybe, he said, or maybe you were injured, and now you're walking again. She studied him. Why does this matter to you so much? She asked. You got what you wanted. Your son is alive. You said thank you. You can go back to your world now. He leaned back. Because I'm not the only one who needs to make it right, he said. You do too. She stiffened. I did make it right. For him, yes, Ethan said. For you, not yet. That night, after her shift, Lila walked home slower than usual. His words wouldn't leave her. Don't disappear. You do too. He had said it like he knew that shame makes people small, makes them dim their own light, makes them think the safest place is behind everyone else. She hated that he was right. She reached her building, climbed the stairs, unlocked her door. Before taking off her shoes, she went straight to the desk. She took the photo and the folded document and laid them out. She stared at them for a long time. Then, for the first time in 3 years, she opened a browser and typed, "Recertification for Clinical Emergency Response, Adult and Pediatric." On the other side of the city, Ethan sat with his laptop open to his calendar. Meetings, dinners, flights, conferences. He deleted 3, moved 2, blocked out a rectangle of time, 3 evenings a week, titled only Leo. He picked up his phone and called the restaurant. "Hi, this is Ethan Blackwood. I'd like to speak to your manager." "This is he." "Good. I want to cover the medical certification fees for one of your staff." Quietly. "No." Announcement. "Her name is Lila." A pause. The manager said, "She's very good and very proud." "I know," Ethan said. "That's why it has to be quiet." "We can do that." "Thank you." He hung up. Then he sat back and let himself breathe a little easier. Not because the debt was paid, it never really would be, but because now the woman who saved his son might get her own life back too. In the days that followed, something subtle shifted. Ethan showed up at the restaurant, less desperately, more consistently. Sometimes with Leo, sometimes alone. Sometimes he didn't even talk to Lila, just nodded to her, letting her know he saw her, but not dragging her into the spotlight. Lila, for her part, stopped avoiding the evening shift. She still hated being thanked, but the red apron didn't feel like a hiding place anymore. It felt like a pause. A pause before going back to what she was meant to do. Both of them were, in their own way, doing the same thing. Learning to forgive the version of themselves that wasn't there when it mattered. And neither of them knew yet that life was about to test that forgiveness all over again. Because guilt doesn't just fade, it gets challenged. And when the past comes back louder, public, merciless, they will have to choose. Hide again, or stand in it. Night dropped over the city like ink spilled on glass. The streetlights shimmered, but the light didn't reach far enough to make things clear. Some truths preferred the dark. Lila sat in the corner of her small apartment, laptop open, a single line glowing on the screen. Application received medical reinstatement review. Her hand hovered above the touchpad, motionless. She had filled every blank carefully, answered every question honestly, but the last one, reason for returning, stayed unfinished. The cursor blinked beside her words. "Because I need to believe that saving one life wasn't luck." She stared at it until the blinking stopped, feeling like a heartbeat. Then she hit submit. At the same time, across the river, Ethan leaned back on his couch, a mug of coffee growing cold in his hand. Leo was asleep on the next cushion, a blanket over him, breathing slow. Cartoon credits rolled on mute. Ethan's phone buzzed once. An alert from his assistant. "Tomorrow board presentation, 9 a.m. He typed back a single message, "Reschedule." Then he put the phone face down. He didn't care if the world burned for one morning. He was exactly where he should be, next to the boy who had nearly left him. Morning came grey and quiet. At the restaurant, breakfast service was slow, a few businessmen, a couple of tourists. Lila worked like she always did, quiet, efficient, distant. But today, she wasn't invisible. Not to everyone. A group of doctors from the nearby hospital sat in the corner, talking too loud. Their white coats draped over the booth seats like flags. Their laughter had a particular rhythm, the kind she used to know. Every word they said dragged her backward. Medical terms, patient anecdotes, successes and failures tossed around like weather reports. Her stomach tightened. She dropped her eyes, focused on the table she was wiping. but their words chased her. Then she heard one of them, a voice she recognized. "Can you believe it's been 3 years since the Ward 7 case? Poor intern. What was her name?" Her body froze. Another voice answered. "Lila something. She quit after that. Can't blame her. That was brutal." "She froze," said the first doctor. "Didn't call it soon enough. I was there. That kid never stood a chance." Lila's throat went dry. The rag slipped from her hand. She turned away before they could see her face. She walked straight to the storage room, closed the door, leaned her forehead against the metal shelf. Her chest rose and fell too fast. The sound of those words, "she," froze, cut deeper than any reprimand ever could. She whispered to herself, "That's not what happened." But it didn't matter. People had already written her story. That afternoon, Ethan came by the restaurant again. He walked in just as Lila stepped out of the storage room, pale, shaken. He noticed it instantly. "Are you okay?" he asked. She blinked, surprised to see him. "You shouldn't keep coming here. Then stop looking like you're about to collapse and maybe I will." She exhaled, almost laughed, but it came out as a sigh. "It's nothing, just ghosts." He frowned. "What kind?" "The kind that talk too loud," she said, glancing toward the corner booth. He followed her gaze, saw the doctors, saw their white coats, saw the way she avoided looking at them. Understanding flickered in his eyes. "People from your past?" She nodded. "People who remember me the way I was when I fell apart." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You didn't fall apart. Tell them that." He stood there for a second, then did something she didn't expect. He walked straight toward the booth. "Ethan, don't," she hissed. But it was too late. The doctors looked up as the tall man approached. "Mr. Blackwood?" one of them said, surprised. They knew him. Everyone in the city did. "We didn't expect—" "I'm not here for business," Ethan said evenly. "I just wanted to say something." He gestured toward Lila, who stood frozen near the counter. "That woman saved my son's life last week. You should know that before you talk about her." The table fell silent. Ethan's tone wasn't loud, but it carried weight, the kind that could bend a room. "She didn't freeze," he continued. "She moved before anyone else did. She knew exactly what to do when no one else did. So if that's what freezing looks like, I hope more people freeze like her." He didn't wait for a reply. He turned and walked back to the counter. Lila's eyes followed him, stunned. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "Because people like that don't deserve to write your ending," he said. "You do." She wanted to be angry, to tell him he had no right, but she couldn't. Not when her heart was pounding the way it was. When her shift ended, she found him waiting outside. "You shouldn't have interfered," she said. "Now they'll just talk more." "Let them," he replied. "They'll talk either way." She shook her head. "You don't understand. In their world, one mistake erases everything you ever did right. Then change the story," he said simply. "It's not that easy. It never is. But if you don't, someone else will write it for you." She looked up at him. "And what about you? You fixed your story yet?" He smiled without humor. "Working on it." Over the next few days, things shifted again, subtly, almost imperceptibly. Lila received an email from the medical board. "Your case has been reopened for review." It didn't promise anything, but it wasn't rejection either. A door cracked open just enough to let light through. She started studying again late nights after work, online courses, videos on emergency protocols. Her old textbooks lay open on the table, corners bent, pages underlined. The words didn't scare her anymore. Sometimes she caught herself smiling small, quiet, cautious at how natural it felt to learn again. Ethan watched from the periphery of her life, careful not to interfere too much. He came by with Leo, sometimes the boy, now carrying a small sketchbook wherever he went. One evening, Leo handed her a drawing. Three stick figures, a man, a woman, a child, the child in the middle with a big smile. Above them, messy handwriting, "The night the stars came back." Lila laughed softly. "What's this?" "That's us," Leo said proudly. "You're the one with the cape." Ethan smiled. "He means apron." Leo shrugged. "Looks like a cape to me." She folded the drawing carefully, tucked it into her apron pocket. But peace never lasts long. Not when guilt still has unfinished business. A week later, the hospital released a public statement, a new pediatric foundation named Second Chance, funded by Ethan Blackwood Industries. Lila read the headline on her phone at work. Her heart stopped for a moment. She knew that name. She knew what it meant. When she saw him later that evening, she said quietly, "Second chance." He nodded. "Seemed appropriate. For you or for me? For both." Her lips curved in disbelief. "You named a foundation after my life's worst memory." "No," he said. After the possibility of rewriting it, she looked away, fighting the tremor in her voice. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," he said. "That's why I did." That night, Lila walked back to her apartment slower than usual. The city buzzed around her, alive, indifferent. She reached her building, climbed the stairs, and sat down at her desk again. She opened the laptop. The email from the board was still there, a reminder of what waited if she kept going. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then typed, "To whom it may concern, I am ready to return to medicine. I understand the risks. I accept them. I just don't want to be afraid anymore." She hit send. At the same time, Ethan stood at the balcony of his apartment, looking out over the city. The rain had started again, thin, silver, endless. He closed his eyes, listening to it. Behind him, Leo's voice called, "Dad, can we go see her tomorrow?" "Maybe," he said. "Please?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Yeah, maybe." He watched the rain slide down the glass, and for the first time since that night, the sound didn't remind him of panic. It reminded him of something cleaner. Something like healing. Two people on opposite sides of the city, both facing what they had run from, both choosing to stand still, even when it hurt. Sometimes that's how redemption begins, not with applause, but with a quiet decision to stop hiding. The rain finally broke. For the first time in days, the city woke up under a clear sky, washed, bright, like someone had taken an eraser to the horizon. Sunlight caught on windows. Morning air smelled of wet concrete and coffee. It was the kind of day that made people forgive the city for all its noise. At the restaurant, staff rolled up the blinds to let the light in. Tables by the window filled first. Conversation sounded lighter, looser. Lila tied on her red apron, smoothed the front of her uniform, and checked her reflection in the metal of the espresso machine. She looked calmer, not fixed, not healed, but steadier. Ever since she had sent that email to the board, something had settled inside her. The future wasn't guaranteed. They could say no, they could drag the process out, but she was no longer running the other way. That alone felt like oxygen. Late afternoon, the door opened, and a boy's voice rang through the restaurant. "Lila!" Heads turned. Some smiled. They all knew who that was by now. Leo ran in, sneakers squeaking on the floor, cheeks pink from the outside air. Behind him, Ethan walked in at an unhurried pace, one hand in his coat pocket, the other holding a small box. Lila couldn't help it, she smiled. "Hey, trouble," she said. "You back to choke on steak again?" Leo laughed, loud and free. "No," Dad said, small bites now. "Smart Dad." "He is," Leo said proudly, then spun toward Ethan. "Dad, tell her where we're taking her." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You just did." Lila untied her hands from behind her back. "Where you're taking me?" "A walk," Ethan said. "Just a walk. With us." She looked around. It was the in-between hour. Not quite dinner, not quite empty. The manager waved a hand. Go. You deserve fresh air. She hesitated 1 second more habit, then untied the apron and hung it on the hook. Okay, she said. A walk. They walked along the river again, but now the water was sparkling instead of dark. Sun hit the surface and broke into 1,000 bright pieces. Families strolled. Vendors sold roasted corn. Somewhere, a street musician played a saxophone. Leo ran ahead a little, then circled back, then ran again, always keeping them in sight. He was different now, more open. Whatever small trauma had scraped him that night had been smoothed over by attention, by being seen, by being allowed to tell the story again and again. Do you ever stop? Lila called. No, he shouted without looking back. Ethan chuckled. I think he likes you. He likes that I didn't let him die, she said dryly. That too. They walked in silence for a bit, watching Leo. It was easy. This silence, the kind that comes when people have already gone through the hard part. After a moment, Ethan said, I heard you reached out to the board. She shot him a look. He told you? Meaning the manager. He didn't tell me, Ethan said. He just asked if I still wanted to cover it. I said yes. You were serious about that. I don't say things I don't mean. She looked back at the water. They might say no. They might, he agreed. They also might say yes. She exhaled slowly. It's strange. I thought I didn't want it anymore. I thought I just wanted to be left alone. And now? And now I want to walk back in there without shaking, she said. I want to prove to myself I'm not the girl from Ward 7. You're not. Saying it is easier than believing it, she said. Then borrow my belief until yours catches up, he said. She glanced at him, surprised at the gentleness in his voice. You talk like you're used to rebuilding people, she said. I talk like a man who almost lost the only person he couldn't replace. They stopped at a bench overlooking the river. Leo plopped down first, legs swinging. Lila sat beside him. Ethan stood for a moment, watching them, then sat, too. The three of them, in a row. They didn't look like a family. Not yet. But they didn't look like strangers either. Leo pulled something from his backpack, a small notebook. What's that? Lila asked. My journal, he said, suddenly shy. You journal? She asked, genuinely impressed. Teacher said it's good, he said. So I write things. I wrote about you. Oh, she smiled. What did you write about me? He flipped through pages, found the one, cleared his throat dramatically. Today I didn't die, he read. A lady helped me. She was fast like a superhero. Dad was scared. I wasn't scared after. I like her. Lila swallowed. The words were simple, but they landed exactly where they were supposed to. Ethan watched her face soften. He opened the small box he'd brought. I got something for you, he said. She frowned. I told you. It's not money. He held out the box. She took it carefully, opened it. Inside was a slim, professional first aid kit, high quality, compact, clearly not a cheap convenience store version. On the inside flap, embossed in small letters, for the one who ran toward him. Lila looked up. This is... She shook her head, smiling despite herself. Overkill. No, Ethan said. It's who you are. Might as well give your hands the right tools, Leo piped up. It's so when I choke again, she can do it faster. Hey, Ethan said, laughing. We talked about small bites. Lila laughed, too, a real laugh this time, not the guarded one. She ran her thumb over the words, for the one who ran toward him. It was such a specific kind of gratitude, the kind that saw not just that she helped, but how she helped. People give tips. People say thanks. Few people name the courage. She closed the kit gently. Thank you, she said. You're welcome, Ethan said. Can I ask you something? She added. Sure. Why, Are you doing all this? The foundation, the kit, showing up. Most people say thank you once and disappear. He considered that. Because I don't want that night to be a single miracle, he said. I want it to be a turning point. For you? For all of us. He gestured toward Leo. Before that night, I was the dad who was always on the phone. Now I'm the dad who cancels meetings. Before that night, you were the waitress who hid from medicine. Now you're emailing boards. Before that night, he was just a kid who eats too fast. Now he's the kid who knows what choking looks like and what saving looks like. He leaned back. One moment changed 3 people, he said. Why would I walk away from that? She stared at him. You talk like a man who believes in fate, she said. I didn't, he said. I do now. They were quiet for a while. Leo kept drawing. A boat, a dog, a waitress with a cape again. Then, suddenly, a voice called from behind them. Excuse me, are you Lila? Every muscle in her body tensed. She turned. It was one of the doctors from the restaurant. Not the cruel one, the other one. Mid-40s, kind face, tired eyes of someone who had done too many night shifts. Lila stood up slowly. Yes, I wanted to apologize, the doctor said, a little out of breath from catching up. About the other day. We shouldn't have talked about that case in public like that. And we definitely shouldn't have reduced you to it. Lila blinked. I read the addendum on the file afterward. The doctor went on. You weren't at fault. The attending signed off on that. It was a complicated decompensation. Lila's throat worked. That's not how everyone remembers it. I know, the doctor said. Hospitals talk. We don't always talk fairly. She hesitated, then added, I also heard you saved a kid. Proper technique, fast response. That's because I was here, Ethan said from the bench. The doctor turned, surprised to see him. Mr. Blackwood. Yes, we heard. Your son? He nodded. You were lucky, she said. I know, he said. Then she looked back at Lila. If you reapply, you should know the board is more open now, the doctor said. We're desperately short-staffed. And some of us remember the whole story, not just the hallway version. Lila's eyes stung. Thank you, she said. That means more than you think, the doctor smiled. Good, because we need people like you back, people who still care enough to shake afterward. Then she left. Lila stood there for a moment, the river breeze lifting her hair, the sunlight catching the damp in her lashes. Ethan watched her. That looked like closure, he said. Not closure, she said, but a door opening. They started walking back toward the restaurant. The late sun turned everything gold. Shadows stretched long. People slowed down, taking their time. Leo walked between them now, holding one hand from each, something he did naturally, without thinking about what it looked like. To anyone watching, they looked like a father, a boy, and someone close. Not yet family, not yet defined, but connected. Do you always walk by the river? Lila asked. Only on days I want to remember I'm human, Ethan said. The other days? She teased. I pretend I'm made of steel, he said. It's bad for the heart. She smiled. She was about to say something else when a voice called from down the path. Lila? This one she recognized instantly. Not like the doctor, not like a customer. This one was from before. She turned. A woman in her 50s stood there, hair in a bun, wearing a cardigan, one of the senior nurses from the hospital. Stern, fair, the kind who saw everything. Miss Hannah? Lila breathed. The woman walked up, eyes wide. It is you. Lila straightened automatically, like a student caught in the hallway. I heard you left the city, Hannah said. Then I heard you were working here. Then I heard... She looked at Leo, then Ethan, then back at Lila. I heard you saved a boy. Lila looked down. Yeah, Hannah smiled, and it wasn't the tight professional smile. It was warm, proud. I'm not surprised, she said. You were always good with kids. Not always, Lila said softly. Hannah's eyes softened. You're still thinking about him. Lila swallowed. I am. You should. No, Hannah said, lowering her voice. His mother never blamed you. She said you stayed with him longer than anyone. Lila's head snapped up. What? She said you were the only one who didn't look away, Hannah continued. That matters, maybe not on paper, but to a mother. It matters. Lila's eyes filled. She had lived 3 years thinking of the worst version of that mother, accusing, broken, angry. She had not once imagined a mother grateful for her presence, even in failure. Why didn't anyone tell me? Lila whispered. You left, Hannah said gently. We didn't know where to find you. Lila let out a shaky laugh. I didn't know where to find me either. Hannah glanced at Ethan, at Leo. Well, she said, looks like you're getting found now. She squeezed Lila's arm. If you need a reference for the board, use my name. Then she was gone, carried away by the crowd. When they reached the restaurant again, the Billy Samori Godesison, the Nosnaman Knot, sun was low. The windows glowed. The evening rush was starting. They stopped outside. This was a good day, Ethan said. It was, Lila agreed. Strangely. Easy. Because you didn't hide, he said. Because I wasn't alone, she corrected. He nodded, accepting that. Leo tugged at her sleeve. Will you walk with us again? Maybe, she said. Tomorrow? She laughed. We'll see. Ethan said, We're not going anywhere. She looked at him at the steadiness in his face. Then she said something she hadn't allowed herself to say in years. I think I'm ready to go back. To medicine, he asked. To who I was supposed to be, she said. He smiled, slow and proud. Good. He reached out his hand. For a second, she didn't move. Then she put her hand in his. Not like lovers, not yet. More like two people who had walked through the same fire and were agreeing, silently. We're doing the second chance together. Inside, the manager called, Lila, we need you on table 7. She squeezed Ethan's hand once, leaned down and kissed Leo on the top of his head, quick, instinctive, maternal, in a way that surprised even her, and said, Go home. I'll see you soon. Then she slipped back into the restaurant, into the place that had become her bridge between the old life and the new one. Ethan watched her go. Leo waved through the glass. And on the sidewalk, under the evening sun, a man and his son stood there with the soft, quiet joy of people who know the person who saved us is staying. Rain threatened again that morning, clouds stacking heavy over the skyline like the city itself couldn't decide whether to cleanse or collapse. Inside Aurum, the breakfast crowd murmured softly. The coffee machine hissed, silverware clinked. Lila moved through it all with a quiet rhythm, her movements smooth, practiced. But beneath that surface calm, her mind was split in two. One part here, taking orders, the other, counting days until the medical board's reply. Every time her phone buzzed, her breath hitched. Every time it didn't, disappointment pulsed like static in her chest. Ethan arrived mid-morning. No Leo this time. Just him, in a dark coat, hair slightly damp from drizzle. He didn't take his usual seat. Instead, he leaned against the counter. You look like someone waiting for news, he said. Lila smirked faintly. You look like someone who shouldn't know that. I read faces for a living, he said. Comes with closing deals. Well, this one's off the market, she said, then sighed. Still no word. They'll answer, he said. They might not, she replied. And maybe that's for the best. He frowned. You don't mean that. Don't I? Her voice was steady but thin, like a string pulled too tight. I keep wondering what happens if I go back. And freeze again. You won't. You don't know that. He leaned closer. I saw you save my son. I know that. She shook her head. One good day doesn't erase a bad night. Maybe not, he said softly, but it proves you can have another good one. For a moment, neither spoke. The coffee machine hummed behind them. Then the manager called her name. She straightened, professional again. As she walked away, Ethan's gaze followed a mixture of admiration and something gentler, something he didn't want to name yet. That afternoon, the letter came. Not an email, a real letter. Envelope crisp, embossed seal, Medical Council of the city. She stared at it on her table for a full minute before touching it. Her pulse thundered. She slid a finger under the flap, unfolded the paper, and read, "We have reviewed your reinstatement request. Your previous record and recent intervention have been considered. We are pleased to inform you that you are approved for clinical retraining and certification review, effective immediately." Her hands trembled. Approved. Not conditional, not probationary. Approved. She laughed, a sharp, shocked laugh that broke into a sob halfway through. For the first time in 3 years, something heavy unclenched inside her. She didn't call Ethan. She wanted to tell him in person. When she walked into Orem the next morning, he was already there, talking quietly with Leo. The boy turned first, saw her smile, and shouted, "Lila, you look happy." She laughed. "I am happy." Ethan stood, eyes questioning. She nodded once, eyes bright. "They said yes," she whispered. He froze, then grinned slow, deep, genuine. "That's incredible." Leo clapped like he was at a show. "Does that mean you're a doctor again?" "Almost," she said. "I have to retrain." "But, yeah, it means I can be." Ethan's voice softened. "Congratulations, Lila," she exhaled. "Thank you." For a heartbeat, they just stood there, 3 people, the air between them thick with unspoken joy and disbelief. But miracles, even small ones, attract storms. That evening, while she was on break, her phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. "You think you can just walk back in? Some of us haven't forgotten what happened on Ward 7. No name. No signature. Just the words." Her stomach dropped. She stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Someone out there still wanted her to carry the shame. Someone couldn't stand that she had moved on. She deleted the message, but the poison lingered. When Ethan dropped by later, he saw it instantly. Her face was different, tight, distracted. "What happened?" he asked. "Nothing," she said too fast. "Don't lie to someone who used to sell lies for a living," he said gently. She hesitated. Then, finally, she handed him the phone. He read the message, jaw tightening. "Coward," he muttered. "No name. Typical." "It doesn't matter," she said. "They're not wrong. Don't do that," he said sharply. "Don't let ghosts write your story." She looked up, eyes flashing. "Easy for you to say. You don't wake up to it." He didn't back off. "No. I wake up to something else, the image of my son choking, every morning, every time I glance at a steak knife. You think guilt has only one shape?" She blinked. The heat between them cooled. He exhaled. "Sorry." "No," she said quietly. "You're right. We both wake up to ghosts." He nodded, voice lower. "Then maybe it's time we teach them to shut up." The next day, a letter arrived for Ethan from the Hospital Foundation Board. They wanted him to speak at the Second Chance launch event next month, to tell the story of the night that inspired it, the night his son was saved. He agreed on one condition: Lila would attend. When he told her, she looked startled. "Absolutely not." "It's your story too," he said. "It's your foundation," she replied. "And your redemption," he countered. "I don't want my name out there." "Then don't say your name," he said. "Just stand beside me. Let people see what second chances look like." She hesitated, torn between fear and something that felt dangerously close to pride. "Finally," she said, "I'll think about it." A week later, she began retraining. Hospital smell, antiseptic and memory. White corridors. Monitors beeping faintly in distant rooms. Every sound hit old nerves. Her hands trembled the first time she picked up a stethoscope again, but repetition builds strength. And soon, muscle memory replaced fear. One night, she stayed late in the skills lab, practicing resuscitation protocols. A young nurse walked in. "You're the one from the Aurum story, right?" Lila froze. "What story?" "The CEO's kid," the nurse said. "They said a waitress saved him. That was you, wasn't it?" Lila hesitated. Then she nodded. The nurse smiled. "That story made half my class sign up for CPR training." Lila blinked. "Really?" "Yeah," the nurse said. "Sometimes one story changes a lot of people." Lila smiled, small, quiet. "I hope so." But outside the hospital, shadows still lingered. A blog post appeared one evening. "Disgraced intern returns. Should she be trusted again?" Anonymous author. Cruel tone. Old photo of her in a lab coat. It spread fast. People love redemption stories, but they love controversy more. By the next morning, her phone was flooded. Comments, messages, some kind, most not. When Ethan found out, he was furious. He came straight to the hospital lobby, still in a meeting suit, tie undone. "Who did this?" he demanded. Lila tried to calm him. "Ethan, please. It's just noise." "No, it's slander. It's attention. Which is worse." He looked at her, really looked, saw the exhaustion in her eyes. Then he lowered his voice. "Tell me what you need." She thought for a moment. "Not rescue," she said. "Just stay." He nodded. "I can do that." And he did. He waited outside until her shift ended. They didn't talk much on the walk back to her apartment. He didn't try to fix it. He just stayed beside her, steady, silent, present. Sometimes that's what saving looks like too. The following week, the story shifted again. A journalist from the City Medical Review published a rebuttal factual, detailed, signed. Former student LM was cleared of negligence in the Ward 7 case. Her recent certified intervention saved a child's life. Perhaps, instead of shame, we should call it growth. The article went viral this time in her favor. When she read it, tears came without warning, because for the first time, her name and saving appeared in the same sentence, not failure. That evening, she met Ethan and Leo by the river again. The boy ran ahead, chasing pigeons. Ethan looked at her, smiling faintly. "You're trending." "Don't remind me," she said. He laughed. "You handled it better than most CEOs I know." "I had practice," she said. 3 years of hiding is excellent media training." He looked at her profile, hair loose, eyes clearer than he'd ever seen. "You know," he said, "when this all started, I thought you were saving us." She turned toward him. And now I think we're all saving each other." She looked out at the river, at the reflection of lights rippling like heartbeat lines. Then she said quietly, "Maybe that's what miracles are. Not magic, just people showing up when they don't have to." He nodded. "You showed up. I'll keep showing up too." For a moment, they stood like that, two people who'd been broken differently, but rebuilt in the same direction. Leo ran back, holding something in his hand, a folded flyer he'd found near the dock. "Dad! Lila, look." It was an announcement. Second Chance Foundation launch next week. A photo of the event stage. Lila smiled faintly. "It's really happening." Ethan looked at her. "Will you come?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I think I will." That night, as she stood by her window, rain started again, soft, cleansing, not cruel. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Not afraid anymore." Somewhere across the city, Ethan watched the same rain through his own glass. Leo slept upstairs, safe. Both of them, the man who almost lost and the woman who almost disappeared, were finally ready for what came next. Because the miracle wasn't that the boy survived. It was that two broken adults learned to breathe again. The night of the launch came faster than any of them expected. The hotel ballroom was all glass and chandeliers, polished floors, soft carpets, cameras on tripods, a lectern in the center with the foundation name on it, second, chance rows of chairs, journalists, doctors, hospital board members, a few influential people who liked to be seen supporting good causes. On the surface, it was an elegant charity night. Underneath it was something else, a stage where the past was about to be dragged into the light. Ethan arrived early with Leo. He wore a black suit, simple, no tie. Leo wore a little blazer that didn't quite fit his energy. The boy looked around wide-eyed. "Wow, there's so many people." "Yeah," Ethan said. "Big night. Are they all here because I choked?" Leo whispered. Ethan smiled. "Kind of. They're here because you choked and someone didn't run away." "Lila," Leo said immediately. "Lila," Ethan confirmed. The boy looked around. "Is she coming?" She said she would. He hoped she would. He had learned not to demand things from her. He could only invite and trust that the new version of her would choose to stand instead of hide. Lila stood in the women's restroom, gripping the edge of the sink. She wore a simple dark dress, hair tied back, no apron, no uniform. Without the restaurant clothes, she looked different, softer, more exposed. As if the person she used to be was finally allowed to come out. Her heart beat too fast. This was not like saving a boy in a restaurant. That had been instinct. This required will. Because tonight, she wasn't going to help quietly and slip away. Tonight, faces would turn. Questions would come. Some would recognize her. Some already had. A woman had stopped her in the lobby. "Aren't you the girl from Ward 7? Lila had smiled, not flinched. "Yes," she had said. "And I'm the girl who saved the Blackwood boy." Then she had walked away. She looked at herself in the mirror. "You're allowed to be seen," she told her reflection. "You're allowed to stay." She took a breath, opened the door, and stepped out. When she entered the ballroom, Ethan saw her immediately. Not because she was the most glamorous person in the room, she wasn't, but because she was the one whose presence changed the meaning of the night. He smiled, relief loosening his shoulders. He walked toward her. "You came," he said. "You asked," she replied. "You look," he started, then stopped himself. She raised an eyebrow. "Like someone who doesn't belong here?" "Like someone who does," he said. Leo ran up and hugged her legs. "Lila," she laughed, bent down, hugged him back. "Hey, hero." "I'm not the hero," he said, pointing up at her. "You are." "Not tonight," she said. "Tonight we're all telling the same story." The event began. Lights dimmed slightly. The foundation director took the stage, talking about underfunded medical students, mid-career nurses, and young doctors who quit not because they were unworthy, but because the system broke them. Then he said, "This fund was born from a real night, a real restaurant, a real child, and a real woman who refused to let the worst day of her life be the last word." Heads turned. Eyes searched. Some landed on Lila. She felt the heat of it, but this time she didn't shrink. The director continued, "And we are honored to have both the father and the rescuer here tonight." Applause. Cameras pointed. Flashes. Lila's throat tightened. Ethan leaned over, voice low. "You're okay." She nodded. "I know." Ethan was called first. He walked to the stage with the poise of someone used to presentations, but his speech tonight wasn't full of market projections. It was personal. He stood at the lectern, looked at the crowd, then down at his son in the front row, legs too short to reach the ground. "My name is Ethan Blackwood," he said. "Most of you know me from the business pages. Today, I'd like you to know me as something more ordinary, a father who almost lost his son because he took a phone call." The room grew still. "I want to tell you about 10 seconds," he went on. 10 seconds when I wasn't at the table, 10 seconds when my child was alone, 10 seconds when he stopped breathing. He told it simply, without drama, which somehow made it more powerful. He told them about the waitress who ran, about the thrusts, about the food hitting the tablecloth, about the sound of crying, the good kind. Then he said, "I learned 2 things that night. First, you are never too busy to look at your child. And second, sometimes the person who saves you is someone the world has decided to forget." He turned, held out a hand. "Lila," he said, "will you join me?" A murmur went through the crowd. Lila stood. For one terrifying second, her legs felt made of water. Then she saw 2 things at once. Leo looking at her like she was the bravest person he knew. And Ethan's hand steady, waiting, not pulling. She walked to the stage. She stood beside him. For a moment, she didn't look at the crowd. She looked at the light. Then he gave her the microphone. She hadn't planned to speak, but sometimes the truth sits so long it starts to burn. She lifted the mic. "My name is Lila," she said, voice clear despite the tremor. 3 years ago, I left medicine because a child died on my shift. The room held its breath. "I was cleared," she said. "But I didn't clear myself. I thought I didn't deserve to wear a white coat again, so I put on a black uniform instead." A few people looked away, uncomfortable. A few nodded, understanding. "I thought," she continued, "that if I served food instead of serving patients, I couldn't hurt anyone. I thought small was safe." She glanced at Ethan. "But saving his son reminded me of something I had forgotten that fear can look like. Humility, but it's still fear." Her gaze swept the room now. "I know some of you remember Ward 7, she said. "I know some of you talked about it. I know at least one of you wrote about it anonymously." A ripple went through the audience. She didn't flinch. "I'm not here to erase that," she said. "I'm here to say that was a night, not a life." Silence. "You teach us in medicine that one bad outcome is part of the job," she went on. "But you don't teach us what to do when that bad outcome goes home with us. You don't teach us how to sleep. You don't teach us how to walk back in." She took a breath. "So, I'm saying it here for anyone who ever left, because it hurt too much. You're allowed to come back. You're allowed to relearn. You're allowed to get it right the second time. That's what this foundation is about. Not money, permission." Applause began soft at first, then fuller. Not the polite kind that we heard. "You kind." Ethan watched her, proud in a way he didn't know how to hide. Leo, from the front row, cupped his hands and yelled, "You're the best, Lila." Laughter rippled through the hall. The tension broke. After the speeches, people surrounded her. Doctors, nurses, students. Some said, "I remember that case. I'm so sorry you went through that alone." Some said, "I burned out too. I just didn't quit." Some said, "Thank you for saying it out loud." Among them, the senior nurse Hannah stepped forward. "You did good," she said quietly. Lila smiled. "You came." "Of course I came," Hannah said. "I wanted to see if the girl I knew 3 years ago finally stopped punishing herself." "Maybe," Lila said. "A little." "Good," Hannah said. "Because we need people who remember what it feels like." What feels like?" Lila asked. "Losing," Hannah said. "The ones who don't remember get careless. You won't." That hit Lila like a blessing. But not everyone was kind. Near the back of the room stood a man with a folded program in his hand, one of the doctors from the restaurant day, the one who had said. She froze. He approached now, expression unreadable. "Lila," he said. She turned, spine straight. "Doctor, I heard your speech," he said. "And?" He hesitated. "I was hard on you. You talked like I wasn't in the room," she said evenly. "I did," he admitted, "because I didn't know how to talk to someone who left." "You could have asked why." "You're right," he said. "I should have." She studied him. "Did you ever lose a patient?" Of course, he said. Did you ever leave because of it? No. Then we cope differently, she said. But that doesn't make mine less real. He nodded slowly. You're right, he said again. For what it's worth. I'm glad you came back. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Me too, she said. While she talked, Ethan watched her from across the room. The woman who had once disappeared after saving his son was now standing in a circle of people, holding their eyes, owning her story. He felt something loosen in him, too. Because her standing there meant his son's miracle wasn't an accident. It was part of a bigger arc, hers, his, Leo's. He stepped aside to take a call, only to see the screen and press reject. He smiled at himself. Old Ethan would have taken it. New Ethan didn't. Later, when the crowd had thinned and the lights were softer, they found a quiet corner. You were brave, he said. So were you, she said. You let people hear you weren't perfect. I'm not. Neither am I. Good, he said. Perfect people don't need second chances. They stood by the window, looking out at the city. Rain had started again, fine, silver, gentle against the glass. Funny, she said. The night everything went wrong for me. It rained. The night everything started again. Also, rain. Maybe that's what it does, he said. Washes the night before. She tilted her head toward him. You talk like someone who forgave himself. I'm trying, he said. Some nights I still see it. Me too. But now, he added, I also see you running. And him breathing. She smiled. Me too. Leo ran over, holding a plate. They have cupcakes. Do they? Ethan said. What a very medical fundraiser. Leo grinned and offered the plate to Lila first. She took one. Thank you, sir. You're welcome, he said, puffing up proudly. Then, serious, all of a sudden. Are you going to be a Dr. Dinner Lady now? She laughed. Something like that. Will you still see me? Definitely. Even if you're busy? She looked at Ethan, then back at Leo. Even if I'm busy, she said. Especially if I'm busy. The boy nodded like that was the right answer. He ran off again. Ethan looked at her. Sounds like you're making promises now. I am, she said. I just don't want to disappear again. Then don't, he said simply. Stay with us. The words were out before he could dress them up. He hadn't meant with us to sound like a family invitation, but it did. She heard it. She didn't look away. I might, she said softly, if you keep putting your phone down. He laughed a real, open laugh. Deal. As the event wound down, a hospital board member approached them. Mr. Blackwood, Miss Lila, she said, we've reviewed the final part of your reinstatement file. Lila's heart skipped. Already? Yes. We wanted to tell you in person tonight. The woman smiled, official but warm. Your retraining is approved. Full. You will be able to practice again, pending your hours. Lila's hand flew to her mouth. Ethan's eyes lit. Leo, who didn't fully understand, cheered anyway. She's a doctor! Lila laughed through tears. Not yet. But I will be. The board member added, we don't often get to correct our own system. Thank you for making us. When she left, Lila turned to Ethan. It's real, she whispered. It's really happening. He nodded, eyes glossy. Yeah, it is. Outside, when it was all over, they stepped into the cool night. The rain had become a mist, hanging in the streetlights like breath. They stood under the awning for a moment, not wanting to say goodbye yet. So, he said, what happens now? I train, she said. I show up. I don't run. And I? He asked. You keep being a dad, she said. Not a visitor. He chuckled. I can do that. She looked at him, really looked now, without the rush, without the fear. You know, she said, voice low. That night, when I saved him, I thought I was just fixing an old mistake. You were, he said, But not the way you think. What way then? You weren't just saving a child, he said. You were saving the part of you that wanted to help. You brought her back. She smiled, eyes wet. Maybe you brought me back. Maybe we brought each other back, he corrected. He held out his hand again. This time, there was no hesitation. She took it, not because she needed saving, but because she had finally accepted the truth. She was worthy of being remembered. Morning sunlight spilled through the window of the old diner, the same one where everything had begun. The same corner booth, the same table. But everything else had changed. The table was brighter now. No tension, no unanswered questions. Just life. Quiet, ordinary, whole. Lila sat on one side, wearing a white coat for the first time in years. No apron, no name tag that said Waitress. The embroidered letters on her chest read, L. Morgan, medical resident. Across from her sat Ethan, sleeves rolled, phone face down beside his coffee. Next to him, Leo, a little taller, hair messier, grinning as he attacked a pancake twice the size of his face. The boy looked up suddenly, syrup on his chin. Dad, he said, you didn't leave this time. Ethan smiled. Not planning to. Lila laughed softly. Miracles do happen. They had come here to mark something, not just the launch of the foundation, not even her reinstatement. Something simpler. Peace. The kind you only get when you stop running from the past. Ethan poured more coffee. You know they're calling you the Waitress doctor online? Lila groaned. Please don't remind me. It's good press, he teased. It's ridiculous. It's true, Leo said through a mouthful. You're both. She pointed her fork at him. And you're still the kid who forgets to chew. They all laughed, the sound of it soft and alive. Outside, the street glistened from last night's rain. A bus hissed to a stop. A woman with flowers passed by the window. Inside, warmth, the piano track looping quietly through the diner's speakers. The same one that had played the night she saved Leo, now less haunting, more forgiving. She reached for her cup, paused, then said quietly, You know, for a long time, I thought redemption meant doing everything perfectly after you fail. And now? Ethan asked. Now I think it just means not quitting when it still hurts. He nodded. I'll drink to that. They clinked mugs. Leo copied them with his glass of milk, solemnly. To not quitting, he announced. To not quitting, they echoed. Later that week, Lila stood in a small teaching room at the hospital. A group of interns gathered around a CPR dummy. She demonstrated the Heimlich maneuver, explained the timing, the pressure, the focus. Then she said, almost as an afterthought, when you do this, remember, you're not just saving airways, you're saving futures. So don't freeze. Her students listened, nodding, not knowing that she was speaking to herself as much as to them. At the same moment, across town, Ethan reviewed the final designs for the Foundation's new training center. Large glass doors, classrooms, a simple sign above the entrance, second chance for those who still care. He approved it with one note at the bottom, make sure the first room smells like coffee. She'll like that. Weeks passed. Life became what it always does after the storm, smaller moments stitched together. Lila studying late in the break room, Ethan bringing coffee at midnight. Leo drawing on scrap paper, leaving doodles of the three of them on the fridge at home. Not perfect, not cinematic, but honest. One evening, she walked into the diner again, alone this time. She sat at the old table, now with a view of the street bathed in gold. The waitress came over, a new girl, nervous, maybe 20, same black uniform, same red apron. What'll it be? She asked. Lila smiled. Just coffee. The girl nodded, turned away. Hey, Lila called softly. You're doing fine. The girl smiled, grateful, not knowing who she was talking to. When the coffee came, Lila reached into her bag and pulled out a folded drawing, Leo's from months ago. 3 stick figures, a sun over their heads. Above it, scrawled in childish handwriting, the night the stars came back. She looked at it for a long time. Then she folded it carefully and slid it back. Her phone buzzed a message from Ethan. "Dinner at ours. Leo's making pasta. I'm supervising. Badly. No phones. Promise." She smiled and typed back. "On my way." Outside, the city was alive again. Cars, laughter, rain beginning to mist. She stepped out into it, coat over her arm, hair catching droplets of light. For the first time, the sound of rain didn't remind her of failure. It reminded her of beginning. And as she walked, a thought rose clear, simple, steady. Some miracles don't happen once. They keep unfolding every time we choose to stay. The Blackwood apartment. Dinner table lit warm. Leo at the stove, flour on his cheek. Ethan setting the plates. Lila walking in, shaking rain from her coat. "Doctor's here," Leo shouted. "Dinner smells like smoke," she said. "Experiment," Ethan replied. "Controlled burn." She laughed, sat down, watching them both, the father who learned to stay, the son who learned to breathe. Ethan joined her at the table, phone still face down. He reached for her hand. This time, she didn't pull away. The camera drifted back through the window, into the night as their laughter mixed with the sound of gentle rain. From one mistake, they built a life. From one breath, they built a family. From one night, they found the second miracle,